Good evening, everybody. It's Dr. Malika, and this is Transformation Tuesday for November the 14th, 2017. And just like last week, we are dealing with issues in relationship to in relation to relationships. And as I promised, this month of November, we will be doing this with my husband, and he will be talking with me on the topics that we have given. Last week, we talked about communication and having effective and healthy communication in a relationship. Today, as you heard from the intro song, we will be talking about baggage. Here's my husband's bags. All right. And as you can see, we're using props to visualize just the baggage and the things that we carry. And so we're going to go ahead and dive into this because I feel like this is a really important topic, one that needs to be addressed and one that we could obviously cover in much longer than the 15 minutes that we have available for this platform. But I think that it's a good start.
My bad. I left something behind. Forgive me.
Here he is.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
With his bags. All right. So I wanted to go ahead and let him start. And he's going to bring up a couple of the topics as far as the types of bags, and then we'll get a little bit more in depth into that.
Well, as you know, there are many types of bags, but society only mainly focuses on a couple of types of bags, and most of those are relational and driven. So but they don't realize that the other types of bags are the baggage that actually tear up and deteriorate your relationships. There's many types of bags, such as financial, all right, that we don't really discuss, right? Expectations, right? Bringing expectations into the relationship. Family, mother, brother, sister, cousin issues, family secrets. History plays a huge part. Sometimes we're married to our history. Mental, some people, mental anger, some triggers, certain behaviors, right? Ego, pride, self-image, just to name a few.
All right, so I wanted to start off by giving you just some practical tips from my perspective professionally of things that you need to do when you're talking about your baggage, no matter what type of baggage it is. You need to analyze yourself as an individual, and the individual side of it is really important because a lot of times we try to analyze the relationship as opposed to analyzing our role in the relationship and what we bring into it. So you're going to need to analyze yourself. Once you're analyzing yourself, you're going to need to be honest and identify what your baggage is or what your points of issue are. And you have to be honest when you're doing that. And then the final third easy step would be to take action or address whatever that issue is in order to be better in that. So you're not going to be able to ignore it because it's really important to make sure that you're not suppressing something or acting like it doesn't exist, because even in doing that, it does not go away. It still exists. So I wanted my husband to go into talking about some of the baggages that he talked about that you bring into. So we'll start from financial, which was the first one he mentioned.
Oh, financial is huge. Financial, most relationships are broken up, because of financial issues. Bad credit. We don't talk about that. Many people bring in bad credit into their relationship. Anything below 600 is bad credit. Student loans, poor financial habits, job stability, right? Failed businesses, personal debt. These are all, types of baggage that you can bring into your relationship that can weigh the relationship down. It tears at every component of the relationship because that financial pushes into every part of your life.
And one of the challenges with financial issues in relationships is that it's a stressor on the relationship. And this is one of the main reasons why couples get divorced, is because of financial issues. It's not that you don't love the person. It's not that you don't care about them. It's not that other areas of the relationship are not healthy, but if the finances are not healthy, it can bring a strain on every area. It can impact the other areas of the life that of your relationship that might actually be healthy. So finances is really, really important.
The reason why that financial is so important to me, because I brought in in our beginning of our relationship, I bought into a failed business. I had a business debt that I had to deal with, and she wasn't aware of that. And I had to address it. As the relationship went on. So it's huge, and it put a strain in the beginning part of our relationship. But that's what we're talking about. Baggage. It's heavy. It weighs on us.
The next one he mentioned was the expectations. So I had a discussion about this with some of the young people from my church. We were talking on Sunday evening about just the expectations that we have going into relationships and looking for mates. And so this is really important when you're talking about expectations. We don't realize we're conditioned and programmed to look at relationships a certain way. And our gender does play a big part in that. A lot of times we're programmed and conditioned to expect certain things, but we're not given the tools and the equipment to actually be successful in relationships. So those expectations will overshadow your relationship if you don't identify what they are and address them.
Yeah, you have plastic expectations. You have fancy expectations, Gucci there. You have, again, paper bag expectations and baggage. Big, carrying it. These are the expectations that we bring into our relationship. It's all baggage. It all deals with, every part of our relationship.
And whether you think the expectations
Perfect.
are...
Sometimes it falls.
Yeah, or the relationship crumbles. Whether you feel like the expectations are merited, meaning you don't want to have low expectations for your relationship. If I don't expect something or I don't have a standard, then that's what I get because I have a low standard. That's okay. But some of those expectations are based on society's views of what your relationship should look like. Example, this was an example I gave to the young people when we were having this conversation. I said, don't let other people dictate what your relationship should look like. So just because the expectation is that the man is supposed to be the one that goes out and works and makes the income, meaning that means your relationship has to look like that. There are different situations that make those expectations look different. It could be based on what's going on in the relationship at the time. I'll use our example. There were times where he was the only one in the household working, and I was at home when my youngest daughter was still not going to school full time. I was home with her, and I used that extra time that I had to do things with school for me personally, as well as work at the church and do other things. But those things also flipped when he was getting his graduate degree, and I was now more established career-wise with teaching and doing what I was doing with finishing up my PhD program. I was able to bear that load, and that was because we didn't allow other people's expectations of what our relationship was supposed to look like to dictate how we operated. And so you have to be really careful with other people giving you the expectation of what your relationship should look like.
And it helped out a lot. That's what leads us into our next, family. Family, father, mother, brother, cousin, and the most important secrets. A lot of times we don't discuss those secrets that, come from our heritage, our history. Those things, that alone, that one family having something to say leads us into another one, friendship. That's also baggage that you bring into a relationship.
I want to go back to family before we jump into friendships. I think family is important because the model that we see on how relationships are supposed to be come from our family. If we didn't live in the household with both our parents, if we were raised by grandparents, it doesn't matter. But the relationships in your family are the first models you see of how a relationship should operate, whether it's functional or dysfunctional. True. And so that's really important because we don't want to always repeat the history or the pattern and model what we saw. There are times when we can identify that is a bad model. But because that's what we've been conditioned to see, if we don't have other options of what that should look like or other alternatives of what this should look like, it can definitely impact your current relationship.
And family is huge in both of our relationships, because we depend heavily on our families. And that was a struggle, a lot of that baggage. Like I said, family is huge. It was pushed, for lack of a better word, into our relationship. you know.
And then to transition into friendship, which he also brought up, we don't realize how important our friendships can be as well, especially if they're friendships that you've had for a long period of time. I'm one where I've had multiple friendships for decades. You know, I'm talking about 30 plus years. I've had the same friends. A lot of it from growing up in the church. These were my friends from church. But those even have an impact. Their opinions on your partner, how they view relationships, they even have something to say. It may not weigh as heavy for some people as your family, but if you consider your friends to be your family, it can weigh just as much as your family does in on your relationship.
Which is my case because my family is also, you know, they're also my friends. I didn't have a lot of friends coming up 30 plus years. That doesn't exist for me. All my friendships exist also in my family. So again, those two for me are huge.
All right, one more before we get out of here. I wanted to talk about, he mentioned this, talk about self-image. Remember I said you have to address who you are as an individual before you can address the relationship. So you do need to address who you are as an individual, and your self-image is part of that. And your self-image includes your characteristics. It includes your belief system. It also includes your behavior patterns. And so when we're talking about self-image, it's not just what you see in the mirror. It is how you behave in certain situations. Right. It's how your characteristics, your personality traits. Are you an introvert? Are you shy? Right? Those are all part of the self-image, and those are things that you have to address. When you're not whole as far as how you see yourself, if your esteem is low, if there's issues in certain areas, that can impact your relationship. And it's not the partner's issue, it's your personal issue that you haven't addressed.
Right. As you can see, I just took off my baggage, you know, because we addressed it, right? Got it was a little too heavy, so I had to put it to the side so I can deal with, you know, self-image, you know. But you got to be, like she said, you know, you have to address it. You have to identify that it's there, right? You have to face it. You can't continue to ignore it, right? And, you know, you have to be honest about it, you know, openly with, you know, she knows most of my baggage, if not all of it. You know, there's still some things that we're working through, right? And, you know, but we can dialogue about it. She's not surprised when she moves the house around and I get all disheveled, and because, you know, I didn't have a lot of stability when I was coming up. So when she moves the house around, when she gets bored, I used to get upset. And she didn't know why. I'm like, I didn't know why, you know, because that baggage I brought into my relationship. So,
and his issue was change because he didn't have stability. When you move around as a young child and you go to different schools, that change is traumatic. Moving is one of the most traumatic things you will do in your life.
14.
Most of you guys that have moved, you know that. And so for him, the issue was not the fact that I was rearranging the house, which most women, that's what we do. Instead of buying stuff, we just make stuff look different.
Right.
It was make him uncomfortable, like emotionally uncomfortable. And so he would get mad. And so that was an issue. But eventually we were able to figure out what the root of the issue was. So now he has addressed that. It doesn't impact him as much. And I stopped moving stuff around as much.
Because we created a what?
A dialogue.
A dialogue. But we also created our next thing, a plan.
Right.
You know, I had to say, hey. So she says, okay, so every 4 months I change it. So now I'm already prepared for it.
It wasn't quite like that. I just stopped doing it. Like, I haven't changed the house in a long time.
But there was a plan. You know, there was a strategy that
I would let him know before I did it.
Yeah, and so I could prepare my mind, you know, for it. You know, now I enjoy it, you know, but again, we had to address it. We had to find it, right? What the root issue change was, right? So, you know.
All right, so we're out of time, as always.
You know.
Remember, the things we gave you as tips. He also talked about this. I talk about this. Analyze yourself as the individual in the relationship. Identify the issues and the challenges that you have, and then take action with dealing with those issues you've identified and trying to correct them to make yourself a healthier person. Remember, again, you can find me on social media. My handles on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter is Dr. Malaika Speaks. And my website address is MalaikaMBrown.com. Malaika is spelled Malaika. You can also find me on YouTube. The name of the YouTube channel is Transformation TV with Dr. Malaika. As always, I'm Dr. Malaika. This was fun. This is
Sherrod Brown.
My husband, Sherrod.
And what's in your bag?
he's getting rid of his bags. He's throwing them away. And we'll see you next week when we will be talking about the topic of blended families. And we will actually spend 2 weeks talking about that because we feel like it's really important to talk about the challenges, the pitfalls, and the triumphs of having a blended family. Until next week, have a great rest of your week.